I think that's probably the solution. That is the way forward. And we have to know how great Krishna is, how much greater he is than us, beyond actually comprehension. The pastimes of Radha and Krishna are beyond anything imaginable in this world, beyond the realms of mundane science and logic, actually, which applies only to this world. But those who are conditioned cannot imagine, and we cannot jump up if we're too short, as it were. We need a ladder. We need a link. So, I think, however, if under these circumstances that I've just been kind of talking about for the past half an hour, in such circumstances when the qualification is there, then indeed we can reduce our lusty desires, as it were, by reading Gopi Lila. I think that's, but in that context that I've been mentioning. Chapter 40 of the Nectar of Devotion, for example, Prabhupada writes, one should not artificially try to establish some relationship. In the premature stage, it is sometimes found that a lusty, conditioned person will artificially try to establish some relationship with Krishna in conjugal love. This is very similar to what we've been talking about. The result of this is that one becomes a prakta sahaja, or one who has taken everything very cheaply. Prabhupada actually gives us the example, doesn't he, of the idea of plastic diamonds from a pound shop or something, or maybe something that you'd put on a headband of a 3-year-old girl or something like that with little. You're not going to actually give her real diamonds in case she loses it or something. And could you afford it? No. So what is the value? Plastic and diamond. There's a big difference, but superficially, to a non-expert, they may appear to be the same. So this is an example of taking things cheaply. Although such persons may be very anxious to establish a relationship with Krishna in conjugal love, their conditioned life in the material world is still most abominable. So there you go. So, I think it kind of like, in one sense, it all speaks for itself. So at that point, I thought to myself, and not ironically, let's read from the 10th canto, the Rasa Dance, the Krishna book. This is the Rasa Dance is there, but notably, Prabhupada does, in his introductory paragraphs, does write an introduction before getting into the Rasa Dance. And why has he done that? He's done it for a reason. For example, he writes, when one dances in the midst of many girls, it is called a Rasa Dance. So, Krishna began the dance among the most beautiful and fortunate girls within the 3 worlds. The gopis of Vrindavan, who are so attracted to him, dance with Krishna hand in hand. Krishna, then Prabhupada adds, Krishna's rasa dance should never be compared with any type of material dance, such as a ball dance or a society dance. As I was mentioning, some people do see it like that, which is, of course, problematic. Prabhupada says, the rasa dance is a completely spiritual performance. In order to establish this fact, Krishna, the supreme mystic, expanded himself into many forms and stood beside each gopi. Placing his hands on the shoulders of the gopis on both sides of him, he began to dance in their midst. And each gopi thought that Krishna was dancing with her alone. Above that wonderful dance flew many airplanes carrying the denizens of the heavenly planets, who were very anxious to see the wonderful dance of Krishna and the gopis. The Gandharvas and Kinnaras began to sing, and, accompanied by their respective wives, all the Gandharvas began to shower flowers on the dancers. So if you can expand yourself unlimited times and get the audience of the demigods to shower flowers, then and only then would you consider qualified to perform the rasa dance in the form of Krishna. Of course, there are dance groups that actually perform this, but again, obviously, they're not necessarily all sahadras. It may actually be a cultural dance performance and so forth. So that's also something to consider. What time does class normally finish on a Saturday, by the way? Just so I... 9 9 o'clock. Okay, maybe we'll do another 10 minutes. All right. Okay, don't worry, I'm not finished with you yet. I also like to, we've just read a little bit of the Rasa dance, but the introduction. I also wanted to read a selected part actually of Naprayaham, published by His Holiness Shiva Swami, which is this particular book founded on Vishwanath Thakur's Saratha Darshana, which is his commentary on the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita, and needless to say, is a very, very elevated piece of literature. And I have to say, Naprayaham and these other books that Shiva Swami had published are extremely well written and poetic and beautiful. And again, it's not the first book that, let's say, you give to somebody who is neophyte, or not that I'm neophyte, not that I'm not neophyte, but nevertheless, I thought there was a very beautiful passage in there. Double negative, always confusing. But there's a wonderful thing I wanted to share with you this morning, nevertheless, which is relevant and befitting and fits in with the other things we've been discussing this morning. There's chapter 2. Within chapter 2, from Naprayaham, how can I ever repay you? This is what Krishna would say to the gopis. Krishna would turn to the gopis and say, you've given me so much, you love me so much, but how can I repay you? I cannot repay you. I can simply be me, and which is good enough for the gopis. So, chapter 2, Radhika's answers on prema. Sri Krishna's heart was speaking. How could he be happy? How could he feel complete? How could he continue to live without the mercy of Sri Radha? How could he have any shelter other than her, whose love personified? Offering respect to that love that forever binds his soul to Krishna, Radha explained to her friends, if you want to hear about prema, then listen. Prema is so great that learned Vedic scholars cannot understand it. What to speak of others who claim to know it? One who attempts to instruct an inquisitive person by measuring prema or comparing it to anything else has failed to comprehend it. One who hears such a teacher is misled. Such exchange is but cheating, for prema disappears before both the discriminate and indiscriminate. Hearing these words, Lita and Vishaka smiled at each other. They were thrilled that Sri Radha's innermost secrets were being disclosed for her own lips. But that pure-hearted soul whose mind is imbued with affectionate attachment, free from all speculation alone, sits upon the throne of natural love. If you ask, what is a symptom of such love? Saki, I shall answer, love is that attachment in which the lover's every act is solely dedicated to the happiness of the beloved. Krishna heard all of this. He drank the nectar of Radhika's words through his ears. Who but her was qualified to describe the constitution of love? Prema is supremely self-sufficient and independent. The tender maiden of prema flees any attempt, be it linguistic, rational, philosophical, or otherwise, to define her. Unless prema is in the heart, empowering the mind and senses by its influence, any effort to understand it is futile. The only considerations are what will please my lover and what will displease my lover. To the question, if prema is beyond comprehension, then how can Radha properly describe it? Krishna answered within his mind, she is prema personified, and her dissertation on prema is but the revelation of her own self. Thus, who else but prema can adequately speak about prema? Sri Radhika continued, the miseries of this world resulting from present and future happiness, family affairs, political intrigues, bodily pains appear as unsurmountable as Mount Meru. They are, however, conquered by supremely powerful prema. Saki, know for sure that the miseries of this world cannot influence prema. To the contrary, as a lamp shines brighter in the darkness, so the glory of prema shines brighter in material affliction. Radhika smiled, inquisitive to know if her goddess student understood the absolute autonomy of prema. Because the very substance of prema is transcendental, once it appears, millions of obstacles fail to arrest its progress. To confirm his comprehension, Sri Krishna smiled and submissively lowered his long eyelashes. So I'll end the quote there. I just thought that was something beautiful I wanted to basically just to share with you to finish off the points I've made. So I just wanted to just repeat the verse of today, just to put ourselves back into context. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked, out of all the topics people listen to, which is the best for all living entities? Ramananda Roy replied, hearing about the loving affairs between Radha and Krishna is most pleasing to the ear. Again, to remind ourselves, Prabhupada in the purport says, in the conditioned stage, one should not even try to remember such things. By practicing the regulatory principles, one should rise to the platform of spontaneous attraction to Krishna, then and only then. In other words, we have to be, just to finish things off in my personal conclusion, I think spiritual life, ultimately, it's an internal process, ultimately. You know, it's just because someone wears a dhoti or has a bead bag around their neck or tilak on their face, it doesn't necessarily mean they're more spiritually advanced than someone who does not. However, just like a policeman or a member of the army wears a uniform, it can help. It helps people identify you, and it helps you to identify yourself. So if you see tilak or you're wearing a dhoti, there's a kind of an obligation culturally and socially, but also for yourself. I'm representing the Parampara when I wear tilak or whatever. I'm representing Prabhupada, you know, whatever we may be doing. And therefore, although it's not all about externals, we have to take them into consideration. We have to take into consideration what gender we are, even though we're actually not the body. Still, Vaishnava culture says, yes, but in this material world, in this physical platform, in other words, what I'm saying is you cannot mix internal and external all the time. They are two different sciences, in a sense. Although they're manifested or catered for in the context of Varna and Ashram and so forth. So therefore, we have to find our place within that situation, really, and remain as preachers and missionaries and servants of Prabhupada in this context, but never to artificially renounce. Let's say this is also in line with the mood of the class. Never to present oneself or to be more advanced than one actually is for one's own gratification or ego. We can encourage ourselves. I remember when I first put on a dhoti, which was a difficult job, for the first time we put on it, it was actually at the Manchester temple, and there was a sannyasi coming round. So that was a big thing, at a small temple. But and I think it was the second day at the temple. I was staying the weekend. And they said, you've got to put it, I had this urge, I want to put a dhoti on, yeah, shave my head, ki jai, haribol. And I did that, and of course, and you could say, well, was I just doing it superficially? In that situation, I'm doing it because I felt encouraged to, and I wanted also, and in that kind of situation, it's kind of okay. I was doing it to honour the guest who'd come from, I think it was India or somewhere. So we can have these externals, I think, as aids, but it's not the be-all and end-all. I think we should never lose our power of discrimination. For example, if we're going to go, just as Bhaktisiddhanta, if we were going to go into a Sangha group, and it was all about Gopi Bhav, or we'd have to be on the cautious side. Where's the Bhagavad Gita? Where's the Bhagavatam even? Even the Bhagavatam, actually. And think of the Bhagavatam as this, doesn't talk very much about Radharani. And yet the Bhagavatam itself is the creme de la creme of the Vedanta Sutra, which is a summary of the whole Vedas. So this is high stuff. This is elevated stuff. The Bhagavatam is extremely elevated. It's a series of leelas and teachings and stories and prayers. There's a lot of prayer in the Bhagavatam, actually. And by you read that, you're making serious spiritual advancement. But there's very little about Radharani, because it's so high. So, getting back to the original point, jumping into the rasa dance and gate crashing gate crashing the rasa dance is inappropriate. First of all, you've got to be let inside, you've got to open the door, you've got to, etc., etc. There's a process that is beyond the laws of time and space as we can even begin to comprehend, and yet it is absolute reality like that. All right, I'll finish there. Maybe a couple of minutes. I don't want to delve too deeply into questions and answers because it will be revealed how little I actually know. But if anyone has any comments or even questions, then please, the floor is open.
Haribol Prabhu. Thank you.
Haribol.
Thank you for the very nice class. I was wondering what is the difference between. Well, so it said that the spiritual master is an expansion of Baladeva. Right? And that is like, so there are three direct expansions of Krishna, or two? Like Radharani is his internal energy, and then, Balaram is the...
He said as to be the first expansion, but Radharani is kind of...
the core of...
Yeah, he's kind of, it's like the male and female forms of Godhead is Krishna and Radha kind of thing, yeah.
So in that sense, our spiritual masters, or all the sannyasi, these amazing, devotees in our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, how do they represent both at the same time, and how do we recognize what is external and what is internal in their presence? I mean, does that make sense? Sorry.
It's a good question, actually, and I'll answer it in the way that I feel my knee-jerk answer to that is this. And because I'll simply quote my Diksha Guru, Bhakti True Swami, on these type of issues. ISKCON is a very special and very unique movement. It is Prabhupada's movement. When we sing Mangalarti or Sri Guru Chandrapadma, mainly the etiquette is in the temple room, we're actually directing that towards Srila Prabhupada. Other Diksha Gurus in ISKCON are transparent via mediums to Srila Prabhupada. Like that. So in other words, Prabhupada is the main guru, but Diksha continues. Diksha has to continue by tradition, by necessity. But for us in ISKCON, Prabhupada is the founder. He is the person that brought Chaitanya Mahaprabhu took him around the world, and of course also in India as well. So everybody, regardless, so the duty of a guru or a Shiksha guru or anybody really in ISKCON is to bring you closer to the feet of Srila Prabhupada. So that we recognize it. We recognize someone by how attached they are to doing that. The qualification of a senior, let's say, in a position in ISKCON, whether it's a spiritual master, a teacher, or whatever it may be, guru, or just simply, is this person bringing me close? Do I feel closer to? Can this person bring me closer to Prabhupada in some way? Is that person motivated in that way? And if so, that's a qualification. But the material energy is very, very strong. It's Kali Yuga. It's we're not in the Holy Dham. Well, the Holy Dham is actually in our heart, but generally, in the streets of the Western cities, Maya is very strong. So, in the case of any failings to that, the main thing is to we take shelter of Prabhupada's ISKCON, but we also use our discrimination as well. The idea, like I said, if you assume everyone who is basically a pure devotee, you're probably a bit naive about that. But although there are people who are very elevated, of course, we have to use our power of discrimination. Our measuring stick is actually Srila Prabhupada and his books. and Guru, Sadhu and Sastra, we use Prabhupada's books, we use like this as our tools to help us discriminate. So those devotees who are less elevated than us or having problems in their life, we help them. Or we ask, or if they're senior to us, we ask someone who's senior to them to help them. Because we're all about helping each other. If someone who is junior to us, then we can give them our association. If you see what I mean, like that. But the mood is not to be to go on a witch hunt, to start kind of going around trying to pick faults in everybody for the sake of it. Jesus Christ actually says, don't look for the splinter in one's eye, because you'll be blinded by the plank that's in your own eye. In other words, the mood we should have is, this. You have a finger. This is the offensive finger that's not allowed inside the bead bag. So if you're pointing at people, say, you're not doing this, you're wrong. But you've got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself, like that. So we have to remember that. That's good. We've got 3, not just 1 finger pointing at us. We've got 3 fingers pointing at ourselves when we point at others. So we but at the same time, so we're not in the mood of being criticised. We have to be in the mood of humility, but never give up our intelligence or our common sense as well. I think that's the best way I can answer that. Okay, maybe one more point or question before we. If not, it doesn't matter. That's it. That's good. Okay, so enjoy breakfast, everybody, and. Hare Krishna, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Assembled Vaishnavas ki. This is what you get.